Hello friends, how you all doing? Welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. I do hope you guys are all doing well, I really do hope that. And of course, welcome back to Chelsea News, the daily series, right here on Football Therapy, where I see what's being said around the Blues, giving you my opinion on it, and of course, more importantly, asking for yours. Many things to talk about today. A midfielder special, largely. Chelsea apparently have identified and perhaps made the initial groundwork for an N'golo Kante replacement. Interesting, who is apparently actually outperforming him in many of defensive metrics. Oh, and by the way, get it in early, successor is probably better than the word replacement, but both could be used in this instance. I want to talk about Conor Gallagher's reservations about Chelsea Football Club, which I found interesting as well. And I also want to speak about Erling Haaland, because of course, this isn't necessarily a Chelsea story in isolation, but he's been linked with Chelsea still, despite Chelsea Football Club buying Romelu Lukaku. Of course, he's got a £64 million buyout clause in the summer. No one really knows where he's going to end up, and I want to speculate a little bit about that. So keep it locked to the end to make sure you hear all the stories. Do consider subscribing if you're new. Please do drop a like. It really helps out the channel a lot, and if you want to support me, it takes a second to drop a like. If you are subscribed, make sure that bell notifications icon is turned on. And I'd remind you guys who are watching, who get frustrated that you don't get notified, YouTube tells me you've just got to make sure you have all notifications turned on, and apparently there's no problem with it. I don't believe them! Anyway, before we talk about Kante replacements and Erling Haaland, let's talk about the reported reservations about Conor Gallagher. I'm getting this from The Mirror, but it was originally reported by Eurosport. Apparently he has reservations and concerns in whether he would actually get a starting place in the Chelsea first team next season, regardless to how good he performs this season, which of course already off the bat, arguably been Palace's best player, most influential. Surely he makes some mistakes and gets the odd card. He's very high octane and combative and loves a tackle and loves pressing, as well as got the quality, creativity. Generally everything you'd want in a midfielder. When you think of the likes of Billy Gilmour, you think it's difficult because he started in the Chelsea first team in high profile matches and won Man of the Match awards. But he needs to really do better, get more time at Norwich. Hopefully under the new management, Dean Smith. He said that, look, he's going to be a big player for us. That's good, and it's right of him to do that because he's such a player with so much quality. But, Norwich will probably get relegated. Billy Gilmour in the relegation season, is that enough for him to start in the Chelsea midfield? Even though you'd say Billy Gilmour had a head start over Conor Gallagher, last summer. You look at it now, if Palace finish mid-table and Conor Gallagher is maybe their young player of the season or in line for their player of the season, you'd have to think he jumps the queue. And remember, most of Billy Gilmour's positive Chelsea experiences, well, I think all of them, came under the tenure of Frank Lampard, who of course is now gone. Not to say Thomas Tuchel doesn't rate Gilmour, I think he does. But Tuchel, in terms of immediate coaching, has probably had better experiences with Conor Gallagher, and that's just in this pre-season. And of course he's watching him play this season. Tuchel will have Conor Gallagher in mind. Now I want to go back to this story because you can understand why Gallagher has reservations. He'd probably be played in maybe the two inside forwards, but maybe not, because Tuchel did play him in the double six, the midfield pivot in pre-season. Maybe that's where he sees him. Certainly, Tuchel said to him in pre-season, you can stay at Chelsea and fight for your place. I won't start you at the beginning because I can't, but injuries, rotation, if you play well, you can fight for your place. Which is great. It shows he gives everyone a chance. But Conor Gallagher was right to go to Crystal Palace on that loan and do what he's doing now, game in, game out. But yeah, he's also, like many Chelsea youngsters, got reservations about the Chelsea first team, despite, the new age Chelsea post Frank Lampard, where youngsters get a chance. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on whether you think Conor Gallagher drops into this midfield, especially when Chelsea are targeting a new high-profile top-tier midfielder as well. Whether that's an additional player, whether that's to replace a current player, or whether that's going to be a long-term successor of a current player. Very, very intriguing indeed. There are some football fans, Chelsea fans, speculating that Jorginho will maybe go especially if we win a Premier League. He would have won the Premier League, Champions League and Euros while playing for Chelsea. And he probably will want to go back, to Italy in his early 30s, where he loves, knowing he's basically done excellent at the highest level in the Premier League and the Champions League, and now he can just be a sort of Italian legend in Serie A. Play out, 5 years probably out there. Do you know what I mean? Going back out there. That's speculation. Apart from his agent linking him to Juve every 5 minutes, I'm saying that as a sort of speculative fan that he might go back. So therefore, Chelsea are preparing a long-term succession plan for Jorginho. I don't know, maybe. But before we talk about Erling Haaland, let's move on to the second part of the video. Chelsea have been heavily linked with Aurelien Tchouameni, the French Monaco midfielder. And from a Football.London article today, it's saying perhaps he is a N'golo Kante replacement, successor. Chelsea have already found the next N'golo Kante in Aurelien Tchouameni. So, of course, being heavily linked to Chelsea at the moment. Flavour of the month, Tchouameni. He has started in the France midfield when Kante's not there. He starts next to Pogba. I don't know if he's in their starting 11. Maybe if they play a three-man midfield. If they played a three-man midfield, it would be Pogba, Kante and Tchouameni. Despite being very young, he's very, very highly rated. How old is he? He is 21, so he's very young. And come the summer, and that's obviously when Chelsea are being linked with him, he will have 2 years left on his deal. His current contract expires on 2024. So that's interesting. I think he absolutely will get a transfer. 24 months left on his deal. Monaco has still asked for a lot of money, I believe, especially with him being high profile. Now, it's interesting. Chelsea have been linked with a sort of CDM style player for a while. Since Frank Lampard, Declan Rice was a huge, huge target. He was too much money in the summer. He's having a sensational season, Declan Rice, in terms of the development of his game and the fact how he is an English homegrown player and a captain of West Ham and starts for England. I think his price tag would be absolutely mental at the moment. He wanted to leave West Ham. He told West Ham, if we are to believe reports by Met Law, should a bid come in for him around £60 million because he didn't cost them anything. He's an academy product. He'd want them to listen. They probably got bids of that and they didn't listen, so he might have felt let down by that. But he does love West Ham. Played on, just developed his game, and they've been sensational this season, of course. So he's probably not regretting, he's probably not regretting not kicking up a fuss or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So Chelsea are obviously looking for that CDM. Tchouameni is another high-profile, high-performance option, obviously playing in Europe. I think if Chelsea could have a pick of anyone, they'd probably go for Declan Rice, but Tchouameni is, of course, an excellent player. Now, Football.London have cited some of his stats, his performative stats this season from Who Scored. I'm going to read a few of them to you now, but before I do, obviously, the disclaimer of perhaps Kante, well, I don't know if they're per 90, these stats, I haven't read them, we're about to dive in, but of course Kante is performing in the Premier League, which is not infinitely, but it's a much higher level than Ligue 1. I mean, Ligue 1 is supposed to be the 5th ranked league in Europe. Personally, I'm not even sure how true that is still now. I don't know if they're going to say they're 6th or something, but I think a lot of Ligue 1 teams would struggle against a lot of Championship teams, which are actually quite good. And I'm not here to slag off French football. There is a lot of good footballers and teams there. I just question the quality sometimes. Alright, so let's read off some of these stats. According to Who Scored, Tchouameni is already outperforming Kante in the departments he has become famed for, his defensive work. The Monaco starlet averages 2.5 tackles, 2.2 interceptions, and 0.9 clearances per game. Kante's numbers are sitting at 1.7, 0.6, and 0.4 respectively. Right, so off the bat, that's superb, very impressive, but interceptions and tackles and clearances, you're going to make more when you don't have the ball, right? Chelsea obviously are really good defensively, but Chelsea largely have the ball, have possession, and therefore they don't have to make that many interceptions and tackles, etc., etc. Also, with the front three and how Thomas Tuchel likes to play in counter-press, you get those sort of number 10s, Mason Mount types, who are actually in front of N'Golo Kante, making those tackles and interceptions themselves, and they try and make really high ball turnovers of the ball. It's not just his defensive work where Tchouameni is sparkling, however. He also is impressive in his all-round play too. His average shots per game is 1.9 to Kante's 0.3. I mean, that's mad because, yeah, Kante doesn't take shots. 1.9 shots per game for a CDM, by the way. That's pretty darn incredible. He has a better pass rate than Kante, which is actually quite interesting because that's nothing to do with, you know, if anything, that is very, very impressive. It's 87.4 to Kante's 85.6, which are both very good. But for a more offensive CDM, who perhaps is a little bit more risk-taking in Tchouameni, for him to have a better pass success rate in a less dominant team, as perhaps, I know Monaco are a good Ligue 1 team. Basically, what I'm alluding to is that is very, very impressive indeed. So it's no surprise to learn that the 21-year-old has modelled his game on Kante as well as Manchester United's Paul Pogba. Well, if you want a hybrid French midfielder, you'd probably take the traits of both N'golo Kante and Paul Pogba. Now, yeah, superb, quite a good all-rounder there, and almost certainly, and by the way, you know, to bring it back to Declan Rice, also an all-rounder, scores goals, makes passes, tackles, interceptions, does all that as well. Tchouameni looking like a much, much cheaper option and a very similar profile of player, and like this article said earlier on from Football.London, a long-term succession plan maybe for N'golo Kante to look for that kind of player that can be mobile and make interceptions, but also can break forwards. Sounds pretty good to me. I think Thomas Tuchel is probably a fan of Aurelien Tchouameni. As previously reported on this channel, Chelsea performance director Petr Cech and advisor, whatever his official title is, he's a big fan of Tchouameni. The last time he was a big fan of a player and wanted him, that was Edouard Mendy, and of course we all know that worked out superbly. So I just need to take a sip of my drink for those of you perhaps who aren't watching and are listening and don't understand the break. Drink complete, thank you. Right, so that's Tchouameni. Please do comment down below on what you think about that situation with him, Kante, the midfielders. Feel free to also comment on the Conor Gallagher, Billy Gilmore situation, the whole midfield madness section. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about Erling Haaland, of course. Got that release clause in his contract in the summer. An absolute goal-scoring machine, a bit of a phenomenon. Got a lot of marketing sort of value now, you know, super FIFA card, all this kind of gear. And looks like he was built in a lab to score goals and play football, essentially. Now, I at this point, I'd like to reiterate my backing and very positive outlook on the Romelu Lukaku transfer. I've loved Lukaku for a long time. I do personally like the romance of the return of him being a Chelsea boy, wanting to, you know, prove certain people wrong, or certainly wanting to complete his narrative at Chelsea. He's not a European striker coming into Chelsea like a Morata or someone, do you know what I mean? You don't know how they're going to do. He's scored over 100 Premier League goals. He's Belgium's top scorer. He's a Ballon d'Or nominee. He's an MVP winner in Serie A. He's a Scudetto winner in Serie A. He's a great footballer and very different to our profiles up front. Despite having Romelu Lukaku, Erling Haaland is still being linked. Thomas Tuchel hasn't poured cold water on that since his comments where he talked about, yeah, maybe they could play together. We'll see if we go for him. I don't know if that was tongue-in-cheek and he was on a bit of a wind-up because he did joke about, oh yeah, we wanted Haaland and Lewandowski as well as Lukaku. You know, it's really intriguing and interesting to me to read those comments. I didn't hear them, I read them. I don't know if there is any video footage of him saying that Erling Haaland stuff. But it fueled the fire of, oh, maybe Chelsea are still in for him. I think it's unlikely. I think Chelsea are one of the more unlikely clubs to get Erling Haaland in the summer, if you ask me personally. But where is he going to end up? Man City, I guess, is a big one, depending on what happens with Harry Kane. Although I do think Harry Kane will still really want to go to City, and maybe they'll still go in for him. I don't think he's going to go to Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I don't think he's got, you know, I know he's got a link to him, but I don't think he's alluring to him personally. Although there will be great deals of cash involved with this transfer. You know, yes, it's a cheap transfer fee, but there'll be sign-on fees, astronomical wages. Of course, Mino Raiola fees, which are astronomical in themselves. The agent So it'll be very, very expensive. Man United don't mind spending money. So maybe if it does come down to money, Man United might get him, and just playing for a big club like Man United in the Premier League might be enough for him. Real Madrid are willing to spend over 200 million euros on a player with 6 months left on his contract in Kylian Mbappe. Florentino Perez has spoken about it. They won't sell to them, which is mental. 6 months left on his deal. Where's that money come? Why would you do that? I can't get my head around why you'd have not just wait 6 months and get him for free. Blows my fragile little mind. But they apparently, despite meant to be in financial problems, they apparently can pull that money out of nowhere. So maybe they'll look at him. Could he end up at Barcelona or Real Madrid? Real Madrid fans seem to think they're getting both Haaland and Mbappe. I've seen on social media. I mean, he could end up there. Of course, he could always end up going to Bayern Munich. A lot of Dortmund players do. He could do a Lewandowski essentially, make the Dortmund to Bayern Munich switch, and probably be the long-term successor to Robert Lewandowski. I'm not sure he'd go to Bayern though. I think he'd probably go to Real Madrid before Bayern Munich. And when it comes to a Prem team, one of the Manchester clubs, I think they're both ahead of Chelsea now, considering the situation. Because Ronaldo, Cavani, both very old. City not with a striker. Chelsea have bought Romelu Lukaku. I'd be very interested to follow this story and comment on it. And I think I probably will. So if you want my opinions on that, make sure you keep it locked to Football Therapy. And I certainly want your comments down in the comment section below. If you have enjoyed today's video, I'd urge you all guys to drop a like. It really means a lot. And if you do choose to subscribe, and indeed if you already are subscribed, make sure all notifications are turned on with that bell so you don't miss a beat and you can watch this information first and be on top of it, friends. Thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the football and I'll see you later.